10 New Bike Inventions You Should See. The Design Museum ran an exhibition in 2016 called Cycle Revolution that celebrated major steps in cycling technology. But its selections, while unarguably interesting, didn't really represent the revolutionary stages in the history of the bike. Here are the inventions that truly revolutionized cycling. The Lauf machine. The spark of genius that started it all landed in the head of German inventor Karl Dries in about 1817. Technically, he was Baron Karl von Dries at the time, but his radical political leanings meant he later dropped the title. Europe had had several years of poor harvests, pushing up the cost of oats and making it prohibitively expensive to keep horses for transport. Searching for a replacement that didn't need feeding, Dries hit upon an idea he called the Lauf machine, running machine, later also known as velocipede, drazen, hobby horse or dandy horse. The rider sat astride a crossbar between two wheels and pushed along the ground to go forwards. It was exactly like a modern kid's balance bike. Dries' genius was in realizing or discovering that two wheels in a line would not simply fall over if there was a steering mechanism for the front wheel, but would be relatively stable once in motion. To demonstrate his device's merits, he completed the 15 kilometers round trip from Mannheim to Schwetzingen and back in a little over an hour. Pedals. The idea of two-wheeled transport slept for about 40 years until the 1860s when bicycles with pedal-driven front wheels appeared in Paris and the eastern USA. Exactly whose idea this was is still a subject of research among cycling historians, but it's clear that René Olivier and his brothers, and a young French mechanic called Pierre Lallement were among pioneers. Pedal drive meant the rider didn't touch the ground at all while riding, a phenomenon that amazed contemporary onlookers. With the blacksmith Pierre Michaud as figurehead, the Olivier brothers orchestrated a craze for bicycles in Paris, while American makers of bikes based on Lallement's design struggled to keep up with demand. Pedals freed riders from the cumbersome action of pushing along the ground and allowed speeds of 12 miles per hour, and more with larger wheels. A vehicle we'd recognize as a bicycle had arrived. Wheels with wire spokes under tension were invented in 1808 by aeronautical engineer George Cayley, but their first successful commercial use was on bicycles. An application for which Eugene Meyer was awarded a patent in 1869. Wire wheels were substantially lighter than solid-spoked wheels, which made bicycles a compelling application, especially as wheel sizes grew to provide riders with a higher gear for faster riding. As with bearings, chains and high-strength steel, cycling applications drove the development of wheel technology. The roller chain. The large driven wheels that led to the high-wheeler bikes of the 1870s weren't the only way of increasing a bike's gearing. It was obvious that a chain drive and sprockets could do the job too, but early chains were heavy, inefficient and unreliable. The breakthrough came in 1880 with Hans Reynolds' invention of the roller chain and improved manufacturing techniques that allowed chains to be mass-produced. The safety bike. The first truly successful safety, though, was John Kemp Starley's 1885 Rover Safety, which incorporated the essential features of a modern bike: similar-sized, wire-spoked wheels and chain drive to the rear wheel. The Safety was a genuine revolution. By reducing the risk of going head first into the ground if you crashed, the Safety allowed everyone to ride a bike, not just the young, brave and athletic. In time, Starley's company became Rover Cycle Company Limited, and after Starley's death branched out into motorbikes and cars. Pneumatic tires. Contrary to popular belief, John Boyd Dunlop wasn't the original inventor of the pneumatic tire. Robert William Thomson filed a patent in 1845. Dunlop's application of pneumatic tires was nevertheless revolutionary, even though his lack of a valid patent made it harder for him to exploit the idea. By putting a cushion of air between the road and the rider, Dunlop made the Safety comfortable as well as safe. And there was another advantage: pneumatic tires were lots faster, thanks to their lower rolling resistance. When so riders on pneumatics started beating elite racers on solid tires, racers quickly switched. Hub gears and the parallelogram derailleur. Two brilliant approaches to the same problem: metering out the human engine's meager couple of hundred watts so a rider can get up hills slowly and comfortably on the same bike that speeds along at 20 miles per hour on the flat. Epicyclic gears with interlocking cogs to provide different ratios are at the heart of hub gears. They first appeared on tricycles in the mid-1880s, but they rocketed to popularity after Raleigh head Frank Bowden bought the rights to two different three-speed designs and appointed Henry Sturmey and James Archer to head a division that began to make the Sturmey-Archer three-speed hub in about 1903. The hub gear was wildly popular in the UK for its simplicity of use and minimal need for maintenance. It provided easier hill climbing and greater speed on the flat, once again opening up the use of the bicycle to a wider range of people and abilities. With the introduction of the hub gear in 1936, Sturmey Archer enabled the heyday of the classic English three-speed beloved of vicars, policemen, district nurses and factory workers of the era. The Molten. Sometimes a bike is revolutionary not for its technical advances but for how it fits the zeitgeist. With its small wheels and novel looks, the original Molten bicycle was as much a part of Britain's swinging 60s as the miniskirt and minicar. As they rushed out small-wheeled lookalikes, other bike makers entirely missed the point of the Molten's combination of features. Yes, it had small wheels, but they had relatively narrow, high-pressure tires, a combination that would be uncomfortable but for the Molten's rubber suspension. Breezer mountain bike. Like so many cycling revolutions, the mountain bike happened because several people and ideas came together at the right time. Gary Fisher provided the marketing nous, Charlie Kelly the spirit, and Joe Breeze and Tom Ritchie the frame building skill. While Tom Ritchie built most of the bikes sold in the early days of mountain bikes, the company, Joe Breeze meticulously welded the first 10, igniting demand from those who saw them. Charlie Kelly has written that the first Breeze mountain bike was the most important bike of the 20th century. In a 2014 interview with VeloNews, he said, "That bike inspired 3 or 4 other people. That was the pebble coming off the top of the hill that became an avalanche, but when you look at the modern mountain bike, working your way upstream, that's where it hits, with that Breezer bike." Honorable mentions. These are important inventions that shaped cycling, especially sport cycling, but it's a stretch to call them revolutionary. Freewheel. The ratcheting mechanism that lets a wheel spin without turning the pedals was invented in 1869 by William van Andenen but was initially disdained by cyclists who feared adding mechanical complexity to the early bicycle. It reappeared with the advent of coaster brakes and multiple gearing. Lycra readers with long memories will recall ghastly shorts made from wool and other knitted fabrics in the pre-Lycra era. They were heavy and sweaty and only used by riders doing the sort of long distances that demanded a chamois liner. Stretchy fabrics using DuPont's Lycra fiber were a huge improvement in comfort, moving with the rider and making cooling much easier. Indexed gears, shifting that clicks from gear to gear, had been around for decades when Shimano introduced sys gearing. It's how all hub gears work. But Shimano realized it could be an advantage for racers, who would fluff shifts when tired. Indexed down tube levers and mountain bike thumb shifters led to integrated brake, shift levers. I often wonder if the road bike boom of the last few years would have happened without gears you could change with your hands still on the bars. Like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel.